A very good morning from Miami. Welcome along to round 3 of the 2026 ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. It is race day in the Sunshine State, and we are hugely excited for action to begin here today. Qualifying as well as the E-Prix to come later on this afternoon. But before that, in the very early hours of Saturday morning, we have free practice 2 to get underway here at the Miami International Autodrome. A brand new circuit for the drivers to contend with. And yesterday in free practice 1, it was Dan Ticktum who was the quickest driver, ahead of Taylor Barnard and Nico Muller, with last time out's race winner Nick Cassidy and Eder Mortara completing the top 5. My name is Tom Brooks. Alongside me, Billy Munger and Sam Bird here to guide you through the action. Billy, we saw some interesting action in FP1 yesterday. Dan Ticktum putting down a bit of a gauntlet for the rest of the drivers. Do you think he could be in contention for something special today?
Well, I think definitely qualifying around here is going to be tight margins. Yesterday, Dan was on the right side of those margins. He had about half a tenth at least in his pocket, but easily one mistake in qualifying could mean that he potentially doesn't make it through even to the dual stages. So I think it's all about learning from what they experienced yesterday, but you need to deliver when it matters in qualifying.
Absolutely, yeah. Nick Cassidy here, your championship leader, winner last time out in Mexico, 2 races down in 2026 and 2 podiums on the board. And as you can see, subsequently the championship lead there as well. In great form so far this season. Sam, do you think he could be a bit of a dark horse this weekend? Do you think he can spring a few surprises, as he always seems to do?
I don't think you can call Nick Cassidy a dark horse anymore, can you? I mean, leading the World Championship, been so close to getting a World Championship under his belt over the last 2 seasons. I do expect him to be in the mix, definitely. Whether or not he wins this weekend, it's so tricky to say at this point.
On the other side of the table, you've got Jaguar TCS Racing, currently last in the Teams Championship. Both of their drivers having failed to score so far this season. Not the way that either Antonio Felix da Costa or Mitch Evans were looking to kick off 2026. And they need a strong weekend. We're now at round 3. If they're going to try and launch some kind of challenge for the championship, this needs to be a good weekend with a strong, ideally, double podium finish.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got arguably one of the strongest driver lineups on the grid, and to see them with no points is a surprise, I've got to say. Both of them have been in positions over the first 2 races of the year where they could score some decent points. So Jaguar will definitely be looking at this race, looking to bounce back from what has been, a difficult start to the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mitch Evans, of course, ended up in the wall in Sao Paulo, and then last time out didn't particularly go his way of things either. What do you think that's down to? Do you think it's just a bit of misfortune, Billy, wrong place, wrong time, or do you think that there's something more that maybe the drivers or the team could have done?
I think it's a bit of misfortune, but I also think Jaguar as a team, their overall package and performance, it's not like they've been sort of starting on the front couple of rows and sort of keeping themselves out of trouble. It's felt like they've just been in that window where potentially if there is going to be trouble, they found themselves in amongst it. So, ideally, they'd be qualifying and sort of taking a bit more ownership and control of their races by just sort of taking themselves away from that midfield where we do tend to see the accidents happen.
Yeah, a lot of big changes within that team as well over the off-season, including a new team principal of Ian James. He moved over from the Neon McLaren outfit. This man here, Dan Ticktum, also needs a strong weekend. Another driver who has yet to get off of the bottom of the points tally so far this season. Again, if you look back to what happened in Sao Paulo, a bit of a dog's day at the office with the penalties and so on and so forth. Misfortune obviously ending up in that incident that he had with Nick de Vries, and then, last time out didn't go his way there either. I
mean, crazy to think that Dan Ticktum is literally last in the Drivers' Championship right now when he could be sitting first. That's the way this championship goes. He's been involved in 2 incidents that weren't his fault. He was a complete bystander, and he'll be looking to have a really strong result. Quickest in FP1. Let's see if he can back that up today.
Sebastian Buemi, really quick in practice yesterday, also very quick last time out in Mexico, pole position. Could have gone on to do something great, other than the fact he forgot where the brake pedal was when he went down to the first corner, ended up going off the road.
Okay, so first one, we're going on green, we're out, quadruple build, double push, call, single push, call, single push. So the same sequence as yesterday.
So quite a lot of build laps going on there for Mitch Evans, clearly to get some temperature in the tyres.
Yeah, the track is so cold that the tyres need that.
Yeah, it is early in the morning. Well, the green light's about to come on at the end of pit lane as we get free practice 2 underway, and then 20 cars will filter out onto the circuit for the first time here on race day. Very excited to see what's going to happen. You can see, of course, it's very early in the morning, just gone 7:30 local time. The sun, as a result of that, quite low in the sky. We saw Taylor Barnard yesterday having a problem where he had to come in and change his visor because the sun was glinting in his eyes. Hopefully that's not a problem here this morning.
Well, I think it's going to be, Tom. I think the sun's going to be a problem, especially going into turn 1. So I expect the drivers will be struggling to absolutely nail the braking point into turn 1, and that's only going to get worse over the next hour or so.
You can see here it's shimmering here off the advertising hoardings, off the PIF logos as the drivers filter out onto the circuit. I mean, if you compare to when we came into the circuit about half an hour ago, the sun was just sort of coming up through the sky, and yeah, it's so early that clearly drivers are going to have to think about that.
Well, you got to the circuit late, because when I got here it was pitch black. So I don't know what you were doing. But it's very, very tricky to pick your braking point when you've got something like that going on, when you've got the sun glinting in your eyes. It makes driving so tricky. The other thing about this weekend, we all thought coming to Miami it'd be nice and warm, we'd get some sunshine. It is cold here this morning, which is why people are doing quadruple builds, just to make sure that that entire tyre gets a heat soak, not just the tyre surface. You need to get that heat all the way through the tyre. There's no blankets in Formula E. There's no way of artificially heating up the tyre. You've just got to put the work in on the track.
And that's the thing, when we go into the group stages of qualifying, obviously drivers have got the time to go and do things like that. When we go into the dual stages, there isn't going to be the time to do that. And in terms of air and track temperature, it's a bit cooler today than it will be, have been at any point yesterday.
Yeah, also the free practice running that we did yesterday was a lot later in the day. Today qualifying and free practice 2 this morning, a lot earlier in the day, so completely different conditions for the drivers to deal with.
Plus, and it's not going to happen this session, but could affect potentially qualifying or maybe even the race, there is rain on the way.
Yeah, I was just about to say about that. The forecast is not looking particularly pretty. About 1 o'clock or so, they were expecting a shower to come over the circuit here in Miami. The race starts at 2, so we could either we could either end up with a shower, you know, for the start of the race, or indeed possibly a drying track throughout the race.
That would make things very, very interesting.
Let's have a look here at Eduardo Mortara as we ride on board. We're coming down in towards turn 13, and just a slight lock up into there. Runs off to the outside of the circuit. Thankfully, no harm done for him, aside from a bit of pride and possibly a little flat spot there on the front left. Let's have another look at it. So he's weaving about, getting some heat into the tyres down the back straight, and then just snatches the inside front.
Yeah, the tyres just aren't up to temperature. What the drivers are doing here is obviously trying to get the heat into the temperature. The surface of the tyre is still cold. Also, each team has a map whereby they can warm the brakes more for like a prep lap or an out lap, so that it puts more emphasis on the hydraulic brakes rather than the systems.
Yeah, in terms of the times yesterday for practice 1, 55.5, really short lap time here. It's only 2.3 kilometres long, this circuit. One moment.
The sun is horrific.
Well, why don't you tell us how you really feel, Dan?
Short and sweet as always.
He never fails to tell us what he thinks, does he? But yeah, our man, our strategist, our guy in the know, Al B. Lau, told us that it would be difficult to see going into turn 1, and that's exactly what Dan Ticktum thinks.
Yeah, well, we're going to get the lottery results with him for next Thursday as well on that basis. But yeah, keen to see what Dan's going to be able to do. As I was just saying, 55.5 second lap time around here yesterday in FP1, Billy. Really, really short. I think in the group stages of qualifying, we could end up seeing a few drivers getting a bit unhappy.
Yeah, I think you're potentially looking at everyone wanting the same piece of tarmac. They're wanting to cross the line with a matter of seconds on the clock left to go, just when the track is hopefully rubbered in and at its best. And the nature of how small the lap is and how short it is that eventually it feels like a driver is going to trip over one another.
Yeah, it could definitely be a possibility. Just saw Nico Miller there going through turn 11. If you watched rookie free practice yesterday, that's where we saw Abby Pulling having a little bit of a spin. It's also where Mr. Beast ended up in the wall in the Evo sessions here 12 months ago. You can see inside the garages, looking at the different team principals for all the different outfits. Of course, home races for both Andretti as well as DS Penske here this weekend. You'll notice for the former Andretti, a new livery on their car for this weekend. TWG AI being announced as the principal partner of that outfit. They've gone from a red and black livery over to a yellow and black livery. Very distinctive it is, and a very nice colour change on the grid as well. So keen to see if that new livery is going to give them some good fortune here this weekend. They've had a particularly decent start to the season with Jake Dennis, a win, of course, in Sao Paulo, and just missing out on the podium last time out in Mexico.
I think it goes to show how strong that Porsche drivetrain is. Super competitive at all manner of circuits. It seems to be able to work everywhere, whereas you'd probably say that the Jaguar is more suited to slightly slower speed tracks, although the Bohemia was quick yesterday. We know that the Nissan works pretty well at higher grip, high energy circuits, not particularly the best on undulation and bumps or traction zones, but the Porsche works well everywhere.
Yeah, just looking here at Nico Müller in the factory Porsche coming out of the final corner and across the timing line, just puts himself up to the top of the order, still outside of that 1 minute bracket, so a fair way off of where we were at the end of this time yesterday.
But I think he's pushing now, Tom. He's completely missed the apex at turn 1. This isn't going to be his fastest lap of the session, that's for sure, but this is like his first proper push lap of the day.
Yeah, we'll see what Nico Müller is going to be able to sort of throw down in terms of a gauntlet. So just coming out of the right-hander on towards the sort of middle sector of the lap through this chicane of 6, 7 and 8. We saw a few drivers exceeding track limits, especially when they clatter the inside curb there going through turn 8.
There was an interesting stat there at the bottom, wasn't it, about the laps led this season and how Nico Müller has led double the laps of any other driver.
He has, yeah.
It doesn't jump out to me, even though he's had strong performances. He doesn't jump out to me.
Well, that was due to him leading for a long time in Mexico City, where he held the lead, and actually that affected his race.
It cost him in the end.
It cost him big time. So I find that stat is misleading. What matters is how many wins you've had.
Yeah,
that's
where
what
you're
really
at the
matters.
end of the race.
Exactly.
Yeah, the effort doesn't match the reward for Nico Müller. 5th and 9th place so far this season. As you said, led more laps than anybody, but obviously the problem when you're leading is you're expending more energy relative to the other drivers around you. I mean, if you
do we think that's going to be the same problem potentially this weekend with the nature of the circuit, where you have different drivers leading the way here, but potentially that's not going to result in being able to convert to a race victory?
No, and that's what Nick Cassidy's so good at doing, is judging when to lead, as we see a replay of Nico Müller using as much curb as he can get away with. He then, after this slow-mo at the next corner, turn 11, he clouted the inside curb. You actually heard the floor slap back onto the ground as the car re-entered the circuit off the curb.
Yeah, looking here at Oliver Rowland, the reigning world champion. Then again, 2 podiums for him so far in 2026 is the start of season 12, and second in the Drivers' Championship as a result of that. He's done very well so far this year, just good consistency. Hasn't yet to stand on the top step of the podium, but you get the sense that it's a case of when and not if that's going to be coming.
Yeah, you look at when he took the lead of the Drivers' Championship last year and then just went on a run of always being in the top 2 or 3. And that's what he's going to be looking to do again this year. He's now changing his scenario, so that is basically fine-tuning what they need for qualifying.
I question this time and time again, and nothing happens.
Here we go. What
Nothing happens.
What vision?
I'm so pissed off.
Oh, apologies for some of the language coming out of Oliver Rowland's mouth there. I was going to say tension's running high, but we're only 9 minutes into free practice too, so if that's an omen for the rest of the weekend, I'm sure we're going to have to use the beat machine a bit more.
Breathe, Ollie, it's okay. There's 31 minutes to go in the session. No, he's on about traffic and traffic management, I think. He was changing his scenario. Basically, the teams will have different scenarios for race strategies and also for qualifying. You might have a different braking map in one, or wanting to try something in a different scenario. So he's just changing his scenario there to do something a little bit different, as he's now weaving down the straight to get a little bit more temp on the tyres, but this lap is definitely given up.
Sam, you're obviously working within Nissan as well with your role with the team, and you're seeing how Oliver Rowland and the team are operating with one another. Obviously, they're a team and a driver that won the championship last season. Do you think that's just a bit of passion spilling over and just shows his dedication levels and the standards he wants to set?
Ollie is very passionate, and when he wants something, he will tell the team.
Yeah.
Like if he thinks something needs to be changed, he doesn't mix his words.
Yeah.
And I think Nissan know and understand him really well now. They know that him shouting down the radio or saying certain things isn't a bad thing. That's just his way of expressing himself that he wants to change. And they probably see it as a good thing.
Yeah. I feel like in Formula E, the driver and the team and the engineer communication is such a big part of this championship. So, you know, okay, maybe sometimes it's overly clear and a bit abrupt and to the point with Oliver, but I feel like it works for him and it works for the team.
It works because he says, I need something and I want it, and this is the direction that I'm going. They believe him and they follow him. As he's now gearing up for a lap, you see that late apex and now good exit onto the front straight. That can gain you a little bit of time. As we see the car behind having a huge oversteer and slide. I'm not sure who that was. I think it was a Lola.
Yeah, there's an Envision involved there as well. I think it might have been Joel Eriksson, the other driver that was in the mire. We'll have to wait and see exactly what happened there. Anyway, we're 10 minutes into free practice 2 here in the early hours of the morning in Miami. Let's have a go down to our strategist, Albie Lau. Albie, what can you tell us about run plans for certain teams here in FP2?
Morning, Tom. So, as Sam mentioned before, definitely the weather's going to be something that we need to keep an eye on for later in the day. So 2 teams that have really just had an eye to that, Andretti and Penske. They've already actually scrubbed their second set of tires. So what's that? Oh, radio.
Okay, last corner, I'm not sure if something's different on Lamb or Target, but I don't have the same traction.
Yeah, so what Penske and Andretti are doing is basically just taking off some of that really release agent that makes the tire super slippery. That way, if it does rain later on in FP2, or sorry, in qualifying, they can go out and do a lap when all the other drivers are still sort of slipping around. So Sam can actually talk about this a little bit. He understands this side.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Albie. Yeah, it makes sense. So, a case of scrubbing some tyres and getting them prepped for quali to give you a fighting chance.
Yeah, so the surface of the tyre is covered in like a lacquer, and then especially in the wet conditions, the last thing you want is to go out with that lacquer still on the tyre. So just getting rid of that release agent will then ultimately give you more grip. A newer tyre in the wet is better. You've got more tread available and the tread quality is better. But the last thing you want is that lacquer. It would take an age to get that off, and in a 10-minute session, you would have no chance. Yeah,
on board here with Jean Verne in the sister Citroën. Again, he's not had a particularly bad start to the season, a little bit more anonymous compared to his teammate Nick Cassidy. I have to say they're both sporting some aerodynamic haircuts now in that Citroën garage, and the Jason Statham-esque look for both Verne and Cassidy. Cassidy, that's as a result of the fact that he won the race. I had a bet with Verne that if he won the race he would shave his head. Nobody thought he'd go through with it, and then Thursday afternoon we saw him with the clippers out.
Yeah, he's a man of his word.
Well, let's go down to the pit lane and catch up with Georgia. She is with IndyCar driver Will Power, who's here this weekend.
Yeah, electric power on track, but star power back in the garages. We have IndyCar champion, 500 champion Will Power here with us. This is your first Formula E event. What have you thought about it so far?
It's nice to be able to have a conversation. There's no noise, so it's really cool. Like, the technology on these cars blows my mind. You know, that all the stuff that's going on while the driver's driving around with the software. But yeah, very nice. First thing I ask is, when can I drive one? Like, I want to know what it feels like. They look really cool, really cool on track, and yeah, it's cool to be here.
This is also a very new situation for you. You're joining Andretti Global for the first time on the IndyCar side. What's your off-season been like?
Off-season has been incredibly busy, having to get a place up in Indianapolis and just learning a new team and all the people and just working with new engineers and so on. But super excited, been very impressed just being around the team for a few weeks now. And I feel like we're going to be very strong. This team has a ton of potential, and yeah, really looking forward to getting on track and seeing where we stack up against the competition.
We're happy to have you here. Maybe we can get Will Power in for a rookie test coming up.
I think there's a good possibility of that. Why not? Will Power in a rookie test. I'm down for that.
Will Power is not a rookie. He's an IndyCar champion, Indy 500. He's a hero.
Let's have a look at this with Sebastian Buemi versus Nick Cassidy. So this is coming down to turn 13. So Cassidy's on a slow lap, Buemi's on a fast lap, and well, clearly a bit of miscommunication going on there, and we saw Buemi looking particularly unhappy.
Well, they didn't realise. I mean, Cassidy's got out of the way, kind of, thinking that Buemi's going to be on a lap, but actually was coming in the pit. So miscommunication between the two drivers there.
Yeah, that's an unhappy Sebastian Buemi. Whereabouts is he in the standings at the moment? He's down in 13th, so a bit of work for him to do to get back onto the pace, but still plenty of time left in the session. In terms of FP2 here, Sam, obviously, you know, we're at quite an early point of the day, so how do you plan it in terms of looking at qualifying? So are you focusing on sort of group runs at this stage, 300 kilowatts, or are you and then focusing on full power runs at the end of the session?
I mean, if I was driving, I'd be looking to do my full power laps middle to 3/4 of the way through the session, leaving myself enough time to do a couple of push 300s at the end of the session. You want your last couple of laps to be push laps in preparation for the groups. Because it's more important to get through the group and into the duel than focusing on the duel at the end, and that can give you a false kind of reading on where your pace is at.
You just said Costa and Natta are under investigation for a bit of impeding down at turn 13. Not the first time we've seen that, of course, and I'm sure not the last as well. This is the man of the moment. Second in free practice one yesterday, Taylor Barnard. He's broken pretty much every record, but for being the youngest race winner, which he can still do, by the way, quite comfortably this year.
Yeah, he's a force to be reckoned with in Formula E, and he's settled into his new team at Penske very nicely indeed. And I've been really impressed with what I've seen from him. Max Günther is no slouch, his teammate. He's a guy who's very experienced in the championship. He's won plenty of races as well. And Taylor, at the minute, seems to be just hitting the ground running.
It's a big ask as well, isn't it, to change teams, change powertrains, you know, completely different environments, systems to learn and so on. And Barnard's done a particularly good job of adapting to it. He was right in the hunt for things last time out in Mexico in particular. Just looking at some super slow-mos coming through the chicane of 6, 7 and 8. A lot of curb being used on the inside there. You can see how it upsets the balance of the car as it clatters over it.
What do you think's Taylor's biggest strength as a driver, Sam? Obviously, you've been teammates with him. You've been across all of his data. Is there a particular area that he seems to excel?
He's just naturally very, very quick, and he's so young. I mean, Taylor's life right now is really, really simple, because he's so young. All he focuses on is going racing, and when he gets home, he likes to go on his simulator and drive in a simulator. That's his whole thing that he loves to do. So everything is geared around driving or racing a racing car of some sorts, whether it's virtual or real. But I think that virtual world has really, really helped him get to grips with Formula E, and helps him get to grips with tracks in general. Like, he's learned so much on simulation, and I know that the normal path for a racing driver is to go karting and then work your way up through the ranks, but genuinely these simulators now are good enough that simulator drivers can jump into race cars and be competitive. They need a couple of days, of course, but Taylor did the karting, but also the simulation. Let me just say, he didn't come both, from one or the other, but he did both.
There is a tangible crossover, of course, on the simulator. It's one of those things, if you go and sit there and play FIFA on the PlayStation, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be lining up, you know, in the England squad in the World Cup, does it? You know, whereas if you jump on a sim, we've seen it, something like GT Academy with, you know, Gran Turismo. This was 15 years ago now, but drivers who went on to win there have gone on to finish on the podium at Le Mans and race in Dubai.
It builds the skill, it builds the coordination being on the sim. It doesn't, obviously, the physical element of driving racing cars is not to be underestimated, and having that physical strength, the neck strength, core strength, and being able to just have the cardiovascular fitness as well, like, that is important stuff that can't go under the radar.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Just looking at Joel Eriksson, who's on a bit of a quick lap. Fastest in the first sector, personal best in sector 2. Where's this going to bump the Swedish driver up to? It's third in the standings so far. So just over 20 minutes to go here in free practice 2. Let's have a look at some super slow-mos here of Joel Eriksson, who gets the car nice and sideways on the way in through turn 6. Actually helps the rotation of the car there and just gives him a slightly less acute angle than he may have had for the right-hander to follow. It
was interesting when we spoke to Dan Ticktum yesterday after practice, which he obviously topped. He was saying that in previous races, their car hasn't been good at riding curbs, but actually that around this circuit, that is a factor that, you know, if you're a team that where your car has the ability to handle curbs, it's better.
I just can't brake at all in heavy braking. The rears all over the place. I can breathe.
So Roland, they're not happy with the balance of his car.
Yeah, both Nissans struggling at the moment. You see Ollie Rowland down in 16th, not a place where he would normally find himself. He's normally hunting in the top 3 or 4, isn't he, in all free practice sessions. Norman Nato down in 19th. the Envisions, they look a lot stronger this year than they have done over the previous 2 seasons, don't they? They look like they've really got something or found something with their car. And we have seen a definite resurgence from Sebastian Buemi, even Joel Eriksson, who kind of like a semi-rookie. He's coming back to it after quite a long period out. He's looking pretty strong, comfortably sitting P3 right now.
It's good to see for Envision, actually. I mean, they've had a bit of a dog's dinner of a time since they won the Teams Championship a couple of years ago. The results haven't really sort of come their way. Zane Maloney's gone to the top of the pile in his full power attack mode lap there. But it's nice to see for Envision because, you know, Jaguar powertrain, we know that that car has got the potential to be quick, but they just struggled to unlock it consistently last year. Yeah,
they've definitely been missing a bit of form compared to where they've previously been at a team. Also, this weekend, we had the rookie test, and that was topped by the Envision of Zach O'Sullivan. So it feels like any data they gather from that session has sort of put them on the front foot coming into this weekend.
Absolutely, but there's definitely... They've definitely made a step with the car balance.
Yeah, just overall performance.
Absolutely.
That's compared to Felipe at the moment on a 57.3.
Yeah, it sounds like this powertrain's about to blow up any minute. It sounds horrendous.
So possible technical problem there for Jake Dennis. Not happy with the performance of his car.
Yeah, he's missing 3 temps to his teammate, Felipe Drugovich, at the minute. That was information he was getting from his engineer. So around this circuit, Sam, we obviously thought that we were talking about 2 temps being, or maybe 4 temps covering the whole field. So 3 temps to your teammate feels like quite a significant gap at the minute.
Yeah, but what he's saying is the gearbox itself is making a really bad noise. You know, as a driver, you're listening out all the time for different noises from the car. In a normally aspirated car, when you hear the engine is too lean or too rich, you're able to figure out that note. And with these cars, if the note changes, he'll be reporting that back, and that can be so off-putting. And it's time, you know, if he has got a problem, that's going to be a definite time disadvantage for him.
I find it so interesting because if you look at Formula E, like you say, it's a note change, a pitch change in certain things, whereas generally on, you know, other vehicles you can hear it rattling around like a biscuit tin full of teaspoons or something like that. In Formula E, it's just the fact that it's, I don't know, gone from an E major to an F minor or something like that.
But that's what we're looking out for. It's the same thing, but at a different level.
I'm intrigued about this biscuit tin full of teaspoons, Tom. Can you give us an example of that?
Well, every car I've ever driven that I've broken, probably. Looking at Norman Nato, this is a bit more like it for the Frenchman. Fastest ever on the first sector, properly harrying it over the curbs through turn 7 and turn 8. Not necessarily the quickest way through there, but he's pushing on here in this full attack mode lap. He's in 4-wheel drive and 350 kilowatts as well.
Yeah, the Nissan just doesn't look comfortable, does it, over the curbs? The curb riding, as soon as that front wheel touches the curb, it looks like it really upsets the whole dynamic and balance of the chassis. He runs a little bit deep in the final corner. I think he's going to go quickest because nobody else has really done a full 350 power lap. Maybe Maloney has, but for now, to the top of the times on a 55.6.
Yeah, it's not a bad lap, that, considering we were at 55.5 from Dan Ticktum yesterday in free practice 1. So we're still, you know, talking a couple of temps away from where we were yesterday, but it feels like we're definitely getting down to a similar sort of stage with track evolution. The temperatures are coming up now.
Well, we're now seeing more people attempting the full 350 power laps. John-Eric Verns has gone purple in Sector 1. Eduardo Mortaro's just done one as well. He's gone 3, just shy of 4/10 slower than Eduardo Mortaro.
Yeah,
than Norman Nato.
Yeah, seeing these lap times now coming in thick and fast. We've got the 2DS Penske drivers of Gunter and Barnard who are both in the pit lane. However, we have got their team principal, Jay Penske. He is catching up with Georgia in the pit lane.
Tom, you're right about that. I'm here with Jay Penske right now. Let's talk about Taylor Barnard for a little bit. Do you feel like you found and made improvements from FP1 to FP2?
I think so. I think Max particularly has found quite a bit more speed. You saw his last lap. He was basically first overall in terms of ultimate lap time. So I think Max has definitely taken a step. I think Taylor's just getting the car into working order to get ready for qualifying.
Now, we were just standing here talking about how beautiful it is right now, but there is a chance for weather a little bit later. How do you kind of preemptively make changes according to the forecast?
Listen, I think we are going to be ready for hopefully a very dry day because our cars are both very good and hoping it doesn't rain. But here in Miami, weather changes so quickly, so we're expecting anything, but we'd prefer to be dry for the day.
Thanks, Jay.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to Jay, thank you to Georgia down in pit lane. Nato now currently quickest from Jean-Eric Vergne. Here the tyres chirruping there for Lucas de Grassi. Man, he was on the podium in Miami 12 months ago. A legacy of a lot of drivers getting penalties due to not using attack mode correctly. Essentially, they had attack mode left over at the end of the race owing to a late red flag, and it promoted Lucas de Grassi to his most recent podium finish.
Yeah, I was one of them. Thanks for reminding me.
Sorry about that.
Cheers.
Don't mean to bring up old trauma. Verne now second quickest, De Vries into third, and de Grassi has improved there up to fourth. So both of the lowly Yamahas up inside the top 10 at the moment. As we look here at Jake Dennis, not particularly happy with his car. Don't think he'll be particularly happy with the position of things there either. Personal best in the first sector, but sector 2 and sector 3, not where the British driver would have wanted to be. Just under 15 minutes now left of this session. So now we're starting to see these drivers all beginning to improve. And you can see that Dennis, he's on a full attack mode lap here. So he's down to the 350 kilowatts. He's onto four-wheel drive as well. And let's see whether this is an improvement. That's a bit more like it for Jake Dennis, up to fourth quickest, but still 0.3 of a second shy of the quickest time set by Nato.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's an improvement, but it's an improvement because probably 15 drivers haven't done a full push 350 lap. So I don't expect that to be in the top 4 come the end of the session.
Yeah, it feels like Jake Dennis is missing a bit of performance. Like, obviously, we had those conversations with his engineer, but in both 300 kilowatts and 350, we're thinking he's a good 2 or 3 tenths away from where he needs to be. So that's a bit of a concern for him, considering he's had a strong start to the season and would have been hoping to continue that.
It's funny how things can change so quickly in Formula E. I mean, 5 minutes ago, I was looking at the timing screens and we had 19 drivers separated by 0.7 of a second. Now we've seen a lot of the drivers going through the 350 kilowatts, the full attack mode laps, and the gaps have increased quite a lot. You've got 7 drivers now separated by a second, and the gap's even bigger further down the order. So,
as far as I'm aware, though, looking at the times, I think only the top 6 at the minute have set 350 kilowatt laps. Actually, that's a lie, because Zane Maloney did do it, but earlier in the session.
Looking at his teammate here, Lucas de Grassi, out of turn 11 on the run through what is technically turn 12. It's not really a corner, to be honest. It's a flat-out left-handed kick, and then coming down into turn 13, which has been the scene of quite a fair bit of drama in free practice 1 as well as free practice 2 here this morning. De Grassi improves up to third for the Brazilian driver. A couple of rumours going around in the press that this might be his last season in Formula E. I mean, he's a fairly experienced driver, to put it in the most polite terms possible for Lucas de Grassi.
He's been still young.
Yeah,
still young.
Young at heart, isn't he?
For us
fight his corner, Sam. Fight his corner.
Exactly. But I think it's up to Lucas. If Lucas wants to continue, if he feels like Lola can deliver a package moving forwards to Gen 4, I expect him to stay, because he's still got that hunger and desire, and he's a brilliant operator and a good person to have in a team. I think it depends on the next 4 or 5 races for Lola, and also if he sees a real progress from testing with the Gen 4 car.
But also there was testing for Gen 4s a couple of weeks ago down in Spain, and every driver who's been behind the wheel of those cars has complimented it very highly indeed. So I imagine there's a fair bit of incentive for that.
Yeah, it's an impressive bit of kit, the Gen 4. I mean, the acceleration is awesome. You're reaching much higher speeds now. So I think all Formula E fans are excited, as I am, for the Gen 4 car.
Absolutely. Well, we saw Jake Dennis going up to 5th place at the moment in the standings as we look at his teammate Felipe Drugovich, but he was complaining about the car a little bit earlier on in terms of the gearbox and the power unit and so on and so forth. Albie, let's go down to you. What can you tell us about Jake Dennis and the pace and the performance that he's showing so far? Is there anything to be concerned about for him?
Yeah, Tom, I think for Jake, the 300 kilowatt drive issues that he's got is definitely a concern for him. He did his 350 lap with the all-wheel drive, and he popped back up on the timesheets. But realistically, if you listen to the radio from him, he just felt that it was the all-wheel drive saving him into especially in the first sector. So they're definitely struggling on 300 rear-wheel drive. So something to watch out for.
Yeah, not ideal at all there for Jake Dennis. Hopefully they can rectify some of the issues going into qualifying, which is not actually too far away this morning. 9:40 local time. It's currently just about to go 8 a.m.
For this next push, Pascal, try to do a more of a U shape and less of a V shape in turn 4.
Voice there of Robert Sattler, new engineer for Pascal Wehrlein, just telling him to attack the corner a bit differently.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of focusing on entry and exit, let's give it a little bit more minimum speed. That's where you're losing the time, is what he's trying to tell Pascal Wehrlein, who's not having the best of sessions for him. He's down in 18th right now. And his teammate, Nico Müller, down in 19th. So Porsche actually having a tricky session. Of course, 10 minutes to go, and that can all change. But so far, not troubling the top of the timesheets.
Someone who is troubling the top of the timesheets is Antonio Felix da Costa. He's just gone up to the top of the pile for Jaguar ahead of Norman Nato. Got the two Mahindras both inside the top 10 as well. Nick de Vries as well as Edo Mortara. They're both currently in the pit lane. However, they've had great pace so far this season, especially for Eduardo Mortara, who's had a podium at the most recent time out in Mexico. And we think he could be a bit of a dark horse for challenging for victory this afternoon. Let's go down and catch up with their team principal, Fred Bertrand. He's in the pit lane talking to Georgia.
And I want to ask Frederick that in itself. We were just talking about Edo's podium in Mexico. Are you a believer in momentum? Do you feel that momentum carrying over to this weekend?
I'm just a believer in performance right now, but if it gives us a good momentum, we are happy to take it. It was good to, after Sao Paulo, was good to confirm that the performance of the car was able to bring us on the podium. Edo did the job. A bit disappointed for Nick because he had a small issue on the car. Could also have been quite well positioned at the end, but it was a good result for us, yeah.
Strong showings in both practice sessions as well. Are you confident in qualifying?
I'm not sure it would be so important here anyway, qualifying, because the race format might be quite different than usual. But in general, we are very happy to be in Miami. It's great to be on this track. It's great. So now we are learning. Very difficult track to understand everything. Temperatures are very different from yesterday to today and to this afternoon. So we know that there is a lot to learn. So I'm not sure that the timings are so important right now. It's more the learnings and how we can prepare properly quali. Quali will still be important because we like to be at the front, but then the race will be another step in the weekend. So yeah, interesting but very challenging.
Great insight. Changing conditions, something to watch, guys.
Certainly is. Thanks, Georgia. Thank you to Fred Bertrand. We were singing the praises of Antonio Felix da Costa a couple of moments ago. He's just had his lap time deleted, though, for track limits down at turn 8. The same corner where we, one of the same corners where we saw a bit of a moment there for Mitch Evans.
But they'll have the data from that lap, and he'll be confident going into qualifying if he can replicate something like that and just keep it probably a couple of millimeters inside where he ended up on that lap. He'll be right on the money. The other interesting thing to note that we just saw was his teammate Mitch Evans going over the curb at turn 11 and nearly having an Abbey pulling moment whereby the car bottoms out on that curb and forcing the car over the white line and wide, and Mitch Evans had to give up his push 350 lap.
We also just saw Pascal Wehrlein under investigation as Dan Ticktum goes up to fourth quickest. Wehrlein under investigation for not following the race director's instructions. We'll see if anything comes of that, but that's a nice lap time for Ticktum in the final 10 minutes of this session. His teammate Pepe Marti, this is his third free practice session because he was out in rookie free practice yesterday. He got an extra 40 minutes of track time. That's a legacy of him being the only rookie driver to be making his full-time debut, and he's taken advantage of it. He goes up to the top of the pile by 5 thousandths of a second over Norman Nato.
Yeah, good lap that from Pepe Marti.
That's a surprise, to be honest, but that's a really good job. I mean, an extra practice session will help, but I think the track right now is just ramping up as we get to the latter stages of this practice session. Everybody's going to be going quicker towards the end here.
Yeah, it is interesting. In normal Formula E sort of nature, we see a lot of track evolution throughout a weekend, but because this is a purpose-built circuit, it does feel like we're getting less of that. I mean, in the rookie free practice, which was the first running, we were at 55.8, so we're only a 1/10.5 overall improvement across the whole weekend. Obviously, different conditions, different times of the day, but in general, we're not seeing that huge rate of improvement in the circuit conditions.
Yeah, the track already looked quite grippy, actually, when we started rookie free practice, and exactly as you say there, Billy, we're actually a little bit slower compared to FP1 times yesterday. 55.5 was the quickest time at the end of FP1 in the afternoon. 55.6 is the quickest time we've seen so far. Eduardo Mortara goes to within a 1/10 of a second of Pepe Marti's quickest lap into fourth for the Mahindra team. There is Fred Bertrand, who we saw a few moments ago. Down the other end of the order is Ollie Rowland.
I'm sure there's something wrong.
2350 behind.
So all is not well, clearly.
Yeah, if there is something wrong with the box.
I don't know what you can do in 2 minutes.
I mean, he's got a good point. What can you do in a 2-minute spell to try and correct the issue? Obviously, we saw the mechanics there working on the front end of Ollie Rowland's car to try and give him that rear end stability that he's craving right now. Really struggling with stopping that Nissan car in the big braking zones, and that's really hampering him.
When you've driven the car, Sam, what have you found to be the limiting factor with, like, what's the thing that if you have as a driver whilst driving one of these Formula E cars limits you the most?
Probably my lack of talent, Billy.
Don't do yourself a disservice, man.
No, only the 12 wins in Formula E so far.
There you go. Plug it.
There we go. Yeah, still got some left in the tank, as we see.
Dan Ticktum's going to get balked by
drifting, and the Porsche got in the way there, didn't it, in turn 4? But it was already quite sideways through there. On board with him now. Lots of traffic ahead. He's already sideways through 3, and then onto the brakes. A huge shift of brake bias as he's braking into 4. Looked more dramatic than it was, to be honest. But the most difficult and challenging part of these cars is most definitely setting up the car for the brakes.
Yeah.
So you've got systems to stop locking. So each team will have their own version of like an anti-locking system, front and rear. And it's getting that balance right and how much you want to use those tools. Normally in lower grip circuits or circuits where there's slightly less grip, you might want to use those tools a little bit more. When it's grippy, like this circuit, you probably want to get those tools out of the way because they become more of a hindrance than a help.
Well, we've got just over 3 minutes left of this session. Let's go down to Albie for one final time. Albie, we saw some last-minute changes going on there for Ollie Rowland. Clearly not happy with the balance of the car, something not feeling right with it, and they're making some last-minute changes. What were they working on there? Can you give us some more insights?
Yeah, so he was really complaining about rear axle grip, and one thing that actually his teammate Norman Nato did was a stiffer front anti-roll bar, and Norman, obviously, performance-wise, pretty good at the moment, so with some good positive feedback. So that's what they were trying on Ollie Rowland's car. So Ollie may only get a couple laps with this at the end of the session, but at least it'll give him a bit of a feel for it to see if he wants to keep that change for qualifying.
Nice one. Cheers, Albie. Yeah, not ideal for the British driver going into qualifying in the not too distant future this morning, currently 19th fastest, and what looks to be the end of the session there for Ollie Rowland.
Taylor Barnard's going to put himself right up the order here.
Yeah, and to the top of the pile he goes as well, a 10th of a second. Brilliant lap time there for Taylor Barnard in the DS Penske for that team's home race. He's now ahead of Nico Muller. Felipe Drugovich looking pretty handy as well. So much promise he showed in Brazil. Didn't really amount to much, unfortunately, with a post-race penalty dropping him out of the points, but got himself back into the points when we headed to Mexico last time out.
The car looked really good there over the curbs at 6, 7, 8 there for Felipe Drugovich. That looked really strong. He's improved in the middle sector. It's not the fastest we've seen, but he's on for a really good lap here.
Yeah, if we can string it all together, I reckon we could be on for maybe not the quickest lap time, as you say, but depends on the final sector, doesn't it, for Drugovich? He comes out of the final turn, aims for the timing line, and what is the score on the door going to be? Loses a bit of time in the final sector, goes up to 7th quickest.
Yeah, difficult last corner for him there. It's like he turned in a little bit early and then just ran out of room on the exit. Looked very, very wide coming out of there, and like 2.5 tenths he lost pretty much.
In a 14-second sector as well. It's a lot of time, isn't it?
Yeah, Verne's just gone up to 2nd fastest in the Citroen as well. Now you're seeing the timing screens really lighting up as the drivers begin to improve in the dying moments of this session. Still got Mortara and De Vries in the pit, so the two Mahindras have decided to end their session early. They might come out for a practice start at the end of it, but they won't be getting any more meaningful lap times on the board at the moment. Cassidy's just gone up into 10th, but Verline then just pips it in front of the Kiwi. It's a bit more like it for Pascal Verline. No such luck, though, for Oliver Rowland. He is now back out on track, but he's slowest of the lot. We've got a yellow down at turn 4 as well. That's down at the attack mode corner. And we'll have to wait and see what that's all about, whether it's a driver that's had a bit of a moment or they've had a spin or something along the lines of that.
On the time on our tracker.
Grassi, I think, who's come to a stop on the circuit. So double yellow flag there down at turn 4. And that will mean that no drivers will be able to improve unless they're, of course, beyond that point on their flying lap already. So Da Costa could be on for an improvement from 18th quickest. Let's see what he does. Goes up to 6th fastest then in the end of this final minute of this session.
Yeah, it's 2 good laps from Da Costa. Remember, he had a lap deleted.
Oh, he's in the wall. So
a lot of contact there.
Yeah, so he's clipped the wall here as Lucas Di Grassi.
Is that a wall or is that into another car?
It seems like a strange place to hit a wall. It was right in the middle of the sideboard. I think he's had contact with another driver there.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen that this weekend, and we did see that in FP1 yesterday. It's brought out the red flag to bring a premature end to this session. Let's have some team radio.
Double check the system and the temperature, Lucas.
So Lucas de Grassi's session comes to an early conclusion. Let's have a look at what happened then here for the Brazilian driver. So there's his teammate going through your picture, and here's Lucas de Grassi. Oh, we're going to get contact between him and Mitch Evans going through turn 4.
It looked a bit aggressive from Lucas there, I've got to say. He's gone in very, very hot. I think Mitch Evans has given him room. But yeah, Lucas has completely missed the apex there, and if you're going to blame somebody for that, I think it's probably on Lucas more than it's on Mitch Evans.
Let's have a look here, see if we can piece it together a bit more. So we're going into turn 4, and you can see the rear's a bit unstable going into there, isn't it?
Yeah, it felt like what we saw from Dan Ticktum earlier in the session where he was losing the rear. It felt like Lucas had already lost the rear. It put him slightly offline, maybe on a dirty part of the circuit heading into turn 4 there, and then he was just almost a bit of a passenger, just oversailed the apex, missed it, and yeah.
Well, getting the surface temperatures in the window is so key. It looked like he'd already overheated the surface of the tyre going through and out of turn 1. He was wrestling the car through 2 and 3. Probably knew that he was down on time the last lap of the session before qualifying, wants to do something special, outbraked himself, and you've seen the end result. So difficult end to the session for Lucas de Grassi. Wonder if Mitch Evans' car is going to be all okay. I'm sure it will be. Maybe the front left might have a little bit of damage.
I think he lost it into me. I don't know what the he did.
Yeah, under investigation, that incident there by the stewards. You can see the markings on the tyre and actually on the wheel itself as well after that contact for Mitch Evans. Just wrong place, wrong time for the Kiwi, unfortunately. Session will not be resumed, as you saw coming up on your screen a few moments ago. So the classification, as you see it on the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen, is how the session will end. And disappointing there for some drivers to get their final run plans sort of balked, really, at the end of that one.
Do you know what that meant? That Ollie Rowland couldn't check that setup change. So what does he do going into qualifying? Does he trust what Norman Nato did, who ended up P5, or does he go with what he knows? When you're going into a qualifying session and you're making changes, blind changes that you don't know whether they're going to suit you or your car, it makes qualifying very tricky. So right now, Ollie is a little bit on the back foot.
Yeah, well, 10 minutes, of course, in the group stage of qualifying, so there's not a lot of time if the car isn't to his liking to make those setup changes.
But if anybody in this championship can grab hold of a car and get it through,
He's just got in the way of Buemi as well. What the is he doing?
So Ticktum there, clearly not happy with another driver, not entirely sure who that is at the moment. Anyway, we saw Lucas de Grassi in some bother a couple of moments ago. Let's go down to the pit lane, catch up with the Lola Yamaha Apt team principal, Mark Preston.
Thanks, Tom. I just want to get your take on the incident. What's your perspective?
Yeah, we're not quite sure exactly what happened there. Obviously, an unfortunate incident with the Jaguar. Looks like the Jaguar was going slow, and Lucas was coming into that corner quite quickly. So we'll see. We haven't got communication with him. He'd switched the car off, so we haven't had his point of view yet. So we'll see when he comes back in.
Got most of the practice session in there. What did you learn during it up until that moment?
Yeah, it was going quite well, actually. We've had a pretty smooth run up until now this weekend, which has been good. Obviously, having FP0 yesterday has helped us a lot as well. It looked in a good position for today, so yeah, hope for the best.
Thank you, Mark. Qualifying up next.
Thanks, Georgia. Thank you to Mark there as well. Just another look at the incident here, which brought out the red flag at the end of free practice 2. So de Grassi on his lap, has a bit of a moment, clatters into the side of Mitch Evans. Wrong place, wrong time. And you can see it's actually brought the fire extinguisher on there, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That contact has caused the fire extinguisher to go off, which is not fun in the cockpit, let me tell you.
No, I can certainly imagine it isn't. There is Nick de Vries. He ended that session in 14th position at the end of that one. Interesting point you made there as well, Billy, that you've got 10 different teams inside the top 10.
Yeah, it just goes to show how competitive it is out there.
Certainly does. Well, there is Jake Dennis and there is Oliver Rowland, who'll be bitterly disappointed with how his session is concluding after the issues he suffered. Let's get confirmation, though, of the results in a few moments' time from free practice 2. But some work to do for the Nissan team as Rowland ended that session slowest. But here in Miami, we see the coastline, and we see Taylor Barnard at the top of the pile, not for the first time this year and not for the last, I'm sure. He heads Jean-Eric Vergne, so Stellantis powered 1-2 ahead of Nico Müller, then Pepe Marti. So Porsche doing well with cars inside the top 5 ahead of Norman Nato, then Antonio Felix da Costa, Buemi and Mortara with Drugovic, and then Lucas de Grassi completing the top 10. Of course, de Grassi involved in the incident which brought out the red flag after he collected Mitch Evans. Again, just a case of wrong place, wrong time for both of those drivers. Ticktum was outside of the top 10 at the end of that one, ahead of Pascal Wehrlein and the most recent race winner, Nick Cassidy, in front of Nick de Vries and Jake Dennis. Mitch Evans was 16th fastest ahead of Max Günther, Zane Maloney, Joel Eriksson, and then Oliver Rowland, who was a couple of tenths of a second slower than his nearest competitor. And unfortunately for him, a bit of work to do and a little bit on the back foot going into qualifying. It's about an hour and a half or so until we get quali underway. Let's have a listen inside the box here.
Yeah, but we had to fix it like according to the FIA.
Because the FIA said, you know, people used to get pickup caught in it and then it would pull it. Yeah. So they said you have to tape it down now, but it's taped it.
Yeah, but there's something wrong because the impact damaged a bit the side, but not a lot. It could happen in a race again. I could still easily bring the car. The car was not damaged. The car was zero damage. It was just a little bit on the side part. But then
Lucas de Grassi clearly not happy then here with what happened, and they're saying about the fire extinguisher, they're obviously going to have to reset that, get it all checked over by the FIA, etc. as well.
He's making a good point because, you know, okay, the contact was fairly significant, but you could easily see that sort of side-to-side contact happening in a race, and that sets the fire extinguisher off. That's your day done. So it's kind of a concern for him if he doesn't want that to happen again. Also, you could tell, just his body language, he's upset at himself for making that mistake in the first place.
I have no rear and I can't brake. So I have massive oversteer and I just cannot brake anywhere without looking the front.
So Roland not happy with the balance of the car. Oversteer seems to be the problem.
Yeah, and it's what we asked Sam about earlier on in commentary about, you know, what is the difficulty as a driver driving these cars? What can be the limiting factor and put you on the back foot? And it's that braking instability at the rear, and that's what Oliver Rowland seems to have. So it feels like something they're going to need to get on top of.
Well, FP2 has now concluded. Let's go down and catch up with Georgia and Sam in the pit lane.
Billy, you were just talking about difficulties, something we just learned. The sun is absolutely brutal out there. Who was it you were talking to about it, and what did he say?
I was just speaking to Eduardo Mortara about it. He said it's so difficult to pick a braking point going into turn one. As you guys can see, I mean, it's difficult to open your eyes looking in that direction. That's got worse throughout the session. We expect that to go away for qualifying, but that was one of the trickiest things in this session.
We talked about the changing conditions that could happen for qualifying and even the race, the chance of rain. No one wants it, but there is a chance. There's not a lot of time to get to know this track ahead of qualifying and the race. What's the biggest challenge for these drivers right now?
Just making sure that you do a good, clean lap. We've seen track limits be a bit of an issue. Antonio Felix da Costa got his best lap of the session deleted because of track limits. You need to stay in that. You need to get a clean lap in. This is going to be so close going into qualifying.
I'm sure you have some favorites for qualifying, but who's maybe an underdog that you see?
So I'm going to stick with Taylor Barnard. I'm rooting for him this weekend, as well as obviously Nissan, but I think he looks very, very strong.
Pretty smooth session for most drivers up until the very end there. Could it get a little chaotic later? It
did indeed. Lucas de Grassi made an uncharacteristic mistake going into turn 4 and hit the side of Mitch Evans, causing damage to his Lola. The other person that had a difficult session was Ollie Rowland, down in last place in that session, really complaining with the rear of his car. They made a setup change, but due to the red flag, wasn't able to actually see what the changes did to his car. So he's a little bit up against it going into qualifying.
You said Taylor Barnard was your underdog. Do you predict him for pole?
Yeah, go on then. Taylor Barnard for pole. You heard it here.
You heard it here first from Sam Bird. Guys.
Thanks, Georgia. Thank you to Sam. Props to Sam Bird, by the way, for the quickest costume change I think we've ever seen in the history of Formula E. He chucked a new shirt on just to get on camera there. Fair play.
Yeah, he's a quick man.
Certainly is. Yeah. Good end to the session there for some drivers. Taylor Barnard in particular, really impressed with him actually. Just whatever he seems to touch turns to gold, and it cannot be overstated just how impressive it is to jump on to, you know, a new car, new systems, new team, new environment completely, and be as quick as that so soon. Yeah,
it was interesting hearing Sam's perspective, because he obviously was Taylor's teammate in his rookie season, of just how his focus is solely on racing, and that is his life, that's his focus, that's what he enjoys doing, being on the simulator away from races. And it does feel like he's always sharp out the box. It feels like we never see him sort of take 2 or 3 sessions in a weekend to get up to speed.
Well, an hour and 10 minutes or so until we get the programme underway for the qualifying session here in Miami, and then about an hour and 20 minutes or so until the session gets underway proper for qualifying. We'll see how the grid is going to line up for the 39-lap E-Prix this afternoon here in Miami. Of course, a threat of rain coming along the way here later on today. Very excited to see how it's going to work out and who is going to be banking pole position in the Sunshine State. The upshot is Free Practice 2 concludes with Taylor Barnard fastest from Jean-Eric Verne and Nico Miller. Thanks for joining us for Free Practice 2. We'll see you for quali.